de la tormenta, el mundo vivo, cuando la vida quiere llegar, el enemigo solo se los amigos. Amigo, amigo, conmigo, enemigo bien, todo lo destino. Con la guitarra, canto sincero, a voz del amigo, vale dinero. Quien trae mentira, quien no será, quien trae cariño, siempre se queda. Amigo de frente, te da la mano, que no digo calla, queda lejano, amigo de camino.
Guten Tag. Sie wollten mir was erzählen, worum geht's?
Ja, schönen guten Tag. Also ich bin die Maria-Luise Neuberg und ich bin eine sehr stark Betroffene seit über 23 Jahren. Und es geht um die elektromagnetische Folter, um Neurowaffen, Angriffe, um die Mikrowellenstrahlenangriffe. Das ist ja die Gesamttechnik insgesamt. Und daraus rühren eben sehr viele Verletzungen, Körperverletzungen. Und jetzt kommt das Problem, geht man zu einem Arzt, möchte das dokumentiert haben, die vielen Schnittwunden von Laser, Waffenangriffe, kommt kein Arzt hin, der das ordentlich sachgemäß attestiert und dokumentiert. Da wird dann von Katzenangriffen gesprochen. Wenn Sie schwere Verbrennungen durch Mikrowellenstrahlen haben, dann heißt es, es ist eine Allergie. Es ist keine Allergie, es ist ein Mikrowellenstrahlenangriff mit höchster Verbrennungskraft. Die nächsten Punkte sind, Sie haben Körperverletzungen, schauen Sie mich an, ich bin ein Krüppel. Ich konnte normal laufen und das kann ich nicht mehr. Ich werde angegriffen in die Leisten, in die Hüfte. Die Hüfte, die Knorpelmasse wird zerstört, dann heißt es hinterher, wir müssen einen Hüftknochen ersetzen. Also kommt die Hüft-OP mit vielen weiteren Folgen. Das wird von den Ärzten im Grunde so eingeleitet, dass das keine Angriffe sind durch Strahlenwaffen, elektromagnetischen Impulsen, Neurowaffen und was nicht alles, sondern es wird auf ein Krankheitsbild geschoben, ein Krankheitsbild, was mit Strahlenwaffenangriffen nichts zu tun hat.
Liegt das nicht auch an den Krankenkassen, dass sowas da gar nicht in den Tabellen steht?
Das liegt auch an den Krankenkassen. Die Krankenkassen sind daran interessiert, das anders zu formulieren. Das ist absolut richtig. Die Krankenkassen, ich gehe sogar so weit, dass ich glaube, dass die Krankenkassen bestimmen, wie lange ein Mensch am Ende noch mit seiner Krankheit leben darf.
Warum sind Sie Ziel von solchen Angriffen?
Das frage ich mich auch. Ich habe keinem Menschen etwas in meinem Leben getan. Ich habe mich immer für andere Menschen eingesetzt. Ich bin ein unschuldiger Bürger, wie die meisten Betroffenen unter uns alle unschuldig sind.
Wie sind Sie denn auf die Idee gekommen, dass es Strahlenangriffe sind?
Da habe ich lange zu gebraucht. Ich habe den Bürgermeister in Karlsruhe, wo ich lange Zeit lebte und wohnte, angesprochen, um ein persönliches Gespräch und wollte das von ihm wissen. Und dort hatte ich ein Gespräch, da hat er mir das nicht direkt gesagt, der Dr. Mentrup, er hat mich an eine Sozialstation verwiesen. Und die kam dann mit einem Zettel, wenden Sie sich an die Opfergruppe in Nordrhein-Westfalen. Und da habe ich mich dann hingewendet und dann fing ich an zu recherchieren. Und das Ganze habe ich dann so langsam, allmählich aufgebaut und hatte den Kontakt zu den Menschen gefunden. Heute weiß ich sehr genau, um was es geht.
Also das heißt, es gibt viele Strahlenopfergruppen, an die man sich da auch wenden kann, um mal mit denen zu sprechen, um zu schauen, ob man selbst auch Opfer ist von derartigen Aktivitäten.
Richtig, genau. Daraufhin gründete ich eine Selbsthilfegruppe. Seither bin ich unterwegs, halte meine Vorträge und schreibe viel darüber. Und das ist, macht sehr viel Öffentlichkeitsarbeit in den verschiedenen Sozialmedien.
Ja. Ja, vielen Dank für Ihren Beitrag.
Gerne.
Wo findet man Ihre Beiträge im Netz?
Ja, unter Schutzschild. Ich bin ja Mitglied im Schutzschild auch. Und im Internet bei den normalen sozialen Medien bin ich ja fast jeden zweiten Tag irgendwo zu finden.
Okay, dann vielen Dank.
Danke Ihnen.
Tschüss.
Good morning, my fellow targeted individuals. Today is Sunday and I'm walking around and it came to my head, there is something I want to say to so many TIs. There are so many people out there who have the same problem, who are targeted individuals, who are followed with gang stalking, attacked with directed energy weapons, mind control techniques, voice to skull. And there are many people who are calling me, who call me from time to time, because I'm one of the few TIs worldwide who have their telephone number in the internet, on the website. So many people call me and complain and tell me what is happening to them, tell me their story. And this is okay, it's totally okay to talk about your story, to complain. We all need to talk about what is happening to us, because otherwise if you don't talk, I'm sure you will get sick in a while, you will get maybe crazy because this pressure is too much for you. So we all need relief, and talking about the problem gives you relief, and I understand this. But when I ask all the people, what are you doing against targeting, against this problem? And in the most cases, I have to say, they don't do anything. They are just waiting for it to get over, to stop. But waiting to stop is not the right strategy. Because if you are waiting for it to stop, then one day you certainly will die, and this problem didn't stop. You will keep the problem until to the day you die. If you don't do nothing against it, if you don't get active against it, I'm sure you will die, and you will keep your problem until your last day, until your death. I love the words of Anna Toledo when she says, ask yourself every night before you go to bed, what did I do today to end my targeting? What did I do today to stop my targeting? Ask yourself this question every night before you go to bed. What did I do today? Which action? Not talking. Many people are talking on the telephone, talking all the time. But this won't stop the problem. You can talk for 100 years and it will not stop the problem. The only way to get out of this program is to get active, to inform people, to write to journalists, politicians, artists, write emails, write letters, go and meet these people, make appointments, go to the street, distribute flyers, inform people, not talk to other TIs. Talking to other TIs will stop nothing. Talk to strangers in the street. Talk to people who are not TIs, who are not in the program, who are not involved. Just normal people on the street. They need to know this, because this information must get out, and there must be a huge crowd, a huge wave, so to say, that tries to stop this. There must be a kind of international campaign. Like, look at Julian Assange. He was in prison. Everybody thought he will be sent to the US and will be jailed for the next 170 years. But there was this huge international campaign, and they made it. They made it worldwide. People made it to get him out there, and he's a free man now. After all these years in isolation and so on, you know the story. But finally, he is free now. And this is what we need. We need this huge international campaign. Many, many people researching, talking about the problem, writing articles, videos, interviews, and so on. And if we can make it to start such a campaign, then there will be a chance to stop the program. Yeah, I hope that some of you will think about my words and will start to get active, because this is the only thing that can stop the program. Not talking to other TIs, not sitting at home, complaining, mourning. The only way to get out of this is to get active, to go out, to bring the information out to the people, to raise awareness. This is the only thing that we can do. And I will be glad if you join us in this struggle, in this fight. We will keep on fighting, and we will do our best, of course. But we are not enough people. We need more people. We need more fighters. We need you maybe to fight with us to stop this program, because we all need to get out of this. I wish you a good Sunday, nice rest of weekend, and see you next time. Bye bye.
Hallo Freunde, ich möchte euch heute eine Webseite zeigen, die ich selbst erst seit kurzem kenne und die mir ein Freund gezeigt hat. Und darin geht es um die sogenannten Anomalous Health Incidents. Anomalous Health Incidents ist ein anderes Wort für Havanna-Syndrom. Und wir haben ja in den letzten Jahren einiges über das Havanna-Syndrom gehört. Es wurden amerikanische Diplomaten und Geheimdienstmitarbeiter durch unbekannte Waffentechnologie angegriffen. Und am Anfang hieß es, das könnte Ultraschall sein, Ultraschallwaffen oder vielleicht Crickets, also die indische Langschwanzgrille, die hätte mit ihren Geräuschen alle diese Gesundheitsbeeinträchtigungen und Schädigungen bei den Leuten hervorgerufen, wie Schwindel, Hörprobleme, Hörschädigungen, Konzentrationsschwächen und so weiter, bis hin zu nachgewiesenen Schäden am Gewebe des Gehirns. Und andere sagten auch, dass es sich dabei um eine Art von Massenhysterie handelt, dass die Leute sich das alle nur einbilden würden. Aber heute haben wir hier diese offizielle Webseite des amerikanischen militärischen Gesundheitsdienstes, eine offizielle Webseite der US-Regierung. Und darin wird das allererste Mal ganz offiziell bestätigt, dass es sich dabei um technologische Angriffe handelt, um Counterintelligence, also eigentlich um Spionageabwehr. Und das ist wirklich eine kleine Sensation. Das ist noch nie vorher vorgekommen, dass eine offizielle Stelle der US-Regierung, in diesem Fall das US-Militär, ganz offiziell zugibt, dass es sich beim Havanna-Syndrom um technologische Angriffe handelt. Wir schauen jetzt mal auf die Webseite. Ich bin jetzt hier auf der Webseite treecare.mil unter Health, Wellness, Anomalous Health Incidents. Da wird erklärt, um was es geht. Und wenn ich jetzt hier nach unten scrolle auf der Webseite, dann sehe ich schon, dass es eine militärische Seite ist. Da steht nämlich treecare.mil, ist eine offizielle Webseite der Defense Health Agency, kurz DHA, einer Komponente des militärischen Gesundheitssystems. Und hier oben steht jetzt unter Anomalous Health Incidents Folgendes.
Anomale Gesundheitsvorfälle. Anomale Gesundheitsvorfälle werden auch als Havanna-Syndrom bezeichnet. Dabei handelt es sich um seltene Erkrankungen, die erstmals 2016 auftraten. Mitarbeiter der US-Botschaft in Havanna, Kuba, beschrieben plötzlichen unerklärlichen Kopfdruck, Kopf- oder Ohrenschmerzen, Schwindel und mehr. In den letzten Jahren berichteten andere Bundesangestellte über eine Reihe plötzlicher und beunruhigender sensorischer Ereignisse. Das Verständnis der wissenschaftlichen Gemeinschaft über AHI entwickelt sich noch weiter. Das Verteidigungsministerium, DoD, setzt sich dafür ein, dass von AHI betroffene Menschen so schnell wie möglich die richtige medizinische Versorgung erhalten.
Und wenn ich jetzt hier nach unten scrolle, dann steht jetzt hier die Frage, do I need to report an AHI to anyone beyond my provider? Also muss ich irgendjemanden von AHI berichten, der nicht mein Anbieter ist. Und da wird Folgendes erklärt.
Ein AHI ist ein Vorfall der Spionageabwehr. Mitglieder des aktiven Dienstes sollten dies ihrem Vorgesetzten melden und eine nachrichtendienstliche Nachbesprechung durchführen. Andere Bundesbedienstete sollten den Vorfall ihrem Vorgesetzten melden.
Überall auf der Welt Menschen gegen Folter mit elektromagnetischen Waffen demonstrieren und gegen organisiertes Stalking. Wir wissen, dass in den USA ganz viele Demos heute stattfinden und Veranstaltungen, auch kleinere, so wie hier. Wir wissen, dass auch in London heute eine Veranstaltung ist. Und wir stehen jetzt auch schon das 3. Mal hier auf der Straße, beziehungsweise letztes Jahr waren wir am Wittenbergplatz. Ja, wir möchten darüber informieren, dass es weltweit Menschen gibt, die mit Directed Energy Weapons angegriffen werden. Das sind Waffen, die mit gerichteter Energie arbeiten. Elektromagnetische Strahlung, das können Mikrowellen sein, gepulste Mikrowellen, das können aber auch Laser sein. Und was viele Menschen einfach nicht wissen, ist, dass es seit langem enorme Bestrebungen gibt, diese Waffen zu entwickeln. Da wird wahnsinnig viel Geld reingesteckt. Das passiert alles im Dunkeln, passiert alles im Geheimen. Und diese Waffentechnologie ist natürlich nicht öffentlich käuflich. Wir wissen, dass das natürlich militärische Technologie ist, geheimdienstliche Technologie. Daher kommt diese Waffentechnik und da wird sehr intensiv dran gearbeitet. Warum ist das so interessant? Weil diese Waffen durch Wände arbeiten können. Die Strahlung geht durch Wände, so wie wir wissen, dass wir haben Mikrowellenempfang auf dem Handy, auch wenn wir zu Hause im Wohnzimmer sitzen. Das heißt, die Strahlung geht durch verschiedene Materialien und es ist möglich, Verbrennungen zu verursachen. Unterschiedliche Effekte können dadurch hervorgerufen werden, von Herzattacken, Verbrennungen, Juckreiz, Hämatome, innere Verletzungen bis hin zu psychischen Effekten wie Schlaflosigkeit oder Aggression oder Depression und so weiter. Das ist ein großes Forschungsfeld, an dem schon seit Jahrzehnten geforscht wird. Wir wissen, dass die CIA schon Anfang der 60er Jahre mit Strahlung geforscht hat beim Geheimprojekt MK Ultra. Und da wurden Zehntausende Menschen weltweit mit allerlei Methoden überzogen, die man heute als Folter bezeichnen würde. Also zwanghafter Schlaf, also Narkose durch Medikation, Sinnesentzug, sensorische Deprivation, Elektroschocks und die Verabreichung von verschiedenen Drogen, Barbiturate und so weiter, LSD. Also all die Sachen sind ja bekannt, aber was viele nicht wissen, ist, dass die CIA eben schon in den 60er Jahren auch schon mit Strahlung geforscht hat. Wir wissen, dass auch in Russland schon seit langem mit elektromagnetischer Strahlung geforscht wird. Psychotronische Waffen heißt das Ganze in Russland, ist ein bisschen ein anderer Begriff, aber die Russen sind auch sehr, sehr weit vorne mit dieser Waffentechnologie. Und es gab auch diverse, außer MK Ultra gab es natürlich auch andere diverse Projekte. Zum Beispiel gab es das Projekt COINTELPRO in den USA. Das war ein Geheimprojekt des FBI. Und da ging es darum, die Bürgerrechtsbewegung auszuschalten, unschädlich zu machen. Durch Verfolgung, durch Verbreiten von Lügen, durch Diskreditieren der Mitglieder, zum Beispiel die Black Panther oder Martin Luther King war davon betroffen. Malcolm X und so weiter. Da gab es einige bekannte Persönlichkeiten und es ging bis zum politischen Mord. Da sind auch Leute gestorben wegen ihrer Aktivität bei den Black Panthern. Und wir wissen auch, dass in Deutschland die Stasi hatte auch ein eigenes Projekt. Da ging es, das Zersetzungsprojekt war auch ein Geheimprojekt. Da ging es darum, Dissidenten zu zerstören, sozial zu zerstören. Das hat man eben auch durch Lügen gemacht. Man hat Lügen verbreitet über die Leute in ihrem privaten Umfeld, am Arbeitsplatz. Man ist in die Wohnungen der Leute eingebrochen, hat dort Sachen verstellt. Das sind alles Sachen, die heute noch passieren, von denen viele Menschen weltweit immer noch betroffen sind. Man hat diese alten Projekte übernommen, diese alten Geheimprojekte und hat geguckt, was können wir davon übernehmen? Was können wir für uns benutzen und wie können wir diese Methoden für uns ausbauen, um unsere Feinde unschädlich zu machen oder um unsere Ziele zu verfolgen. Und genau das ist es, was bis heute noch weltweit stattfindet. Und weder die Medien noch die Politiker berichten irgendetwas darüber. Weltweit gibt es Folter mit elektromagnetischen Waffen und gibt es organisiertes Stalking. Und es gibt viele verzweifelte Menschen und viele haben auch Selbstmord begangen. Viele Leute haben sich umgebracht aus Verzweiflung. Und ja, wir denken, dass es wichtig ist, dass auch Sie davon erfahren, dass auch ihr davon erfahrt, denn diese Themen betreffen vielleicht heute noch relativ wenig Leute und man hört nichts davon, aber das kann sich schon sehr bald ändern und sehr bald kann auch die breite Masse davon betroffen sein. Wir wissen, wie schnell das gehen kann, dass Technologie auch gegen breite Bevölkerungsschichten angewendet werden kann und es sollte niemand denken, dass er davor geschützt ist. Das kann uns alle betreffen und das kann auch ihre Kinder betreffen und ich denke, gerade Leute, die Kinder haben, die sollten daran denken, dass auch die nächste Generation mit diesen Waffen bearbeitet werden kann. Und ja, ich denke, es ist wichtig, dass wir auch unsere Freiheit erhalten. Denn ein Mensch, der mit Mind-Control-Technologie oder mit elektromagnetischen Waffen angegriffen wird, der gefoltert wird, der mit heimlichen Zersetzungsmethoden verfolgt wird, der ist natürlich nicht frei. Wir wollen eine freie Gesellschaft mit freien Menschen, die Möglichkeiten haben, sich zu entfalten. Und in einer Welt, in der Menschen heimlich gefoltert werden und verfolgt werden und zersetzt werden, kann es keine Freiheit geben. Deswegen, wenn Sie für sich und für Ihre Kinder Freiheit möchten, dann setzen Sie sich mit diesem Thema auseinander, informieren Sie sich hier bei uns am Stand, informieren Sie sich im Internet. Es gibt einige gute Webseiten dazu und einige Filme und erzählen Sie weiter. Tragen Sie weiter, worum es geht, weil es ist wichtig, dass alle über dieses Thema erfahren. Denn wir können nur frei sein, wenn alle frei sind. Ich hoffe, ihr seid dabei und ja, bitte unterstützt uns dabei.
Now, we have the author of A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. He's a medical doctor, anesthesiologist, also has a degree in biology and science from the University of Texas. And he's also, again, an author, satweapons.com. And I was told by Dr. Bob Bowman before he died, who's been on air about this, that they were working on systems, basically a radiation gun that could target and hit somebody, and you die 6 months later. You know, you get real sick but not know what happened. And you know, basically high-powered, nuclear-powered microwaves. So we know this is going on. We're not saying everybody that you know thinks this is happening. It's really happening. Okay, but the point is this stuff exists, and we're going to break. You're with us for the balance of the hour, Dr. John Hall of San Antonio. You got like 2 minutes till we go to break. What do you think, knowing what you ran into and what your book's about with this, with your patients and friends and people, and thinking it wasn't true, because I've seen you on news in San Antonio and then discovering stuff, what does this look to you with this constellation of info we've got with this Alexis guy?
Well, you know, knowing that the government wants gun control, and then seeing some of the other things that have come out recently, like you said, you know, you can't discount mental illness, you know, especially being a physician, you've got to recognize that schizophrenics exist. For one, he's a little old to just all of a sudden go schizophrenic.
Bingo.
Yeah, typically.
34? Typically it's like in your teens.
18 to 28, yeah, typically. So acute schizophrenia in somebody at his age now, he worked in a field where he worked with these types of exotic weapons. Like on NBC, they mentioned the etching on his shotgun. They mentioned it as cryptic etching that said, "My ELF weapon." Well, it wasn't cryptic to him. He's worked in this field. So he knew exactly what he was being targeted with. The voices he was hearing didn't tell him to go run amok at the Navy Yard. He went to where he perceived the weapons coming from.
Ooh, that's a good point as a theory. They were programming him for a mass shooting, so he went to them.
Exactly. Yeah, having worked with a lot of these victims that are hearing voices that are being put into their head, not from schizophrenia, most of them kind of have an idea of where it's coming from. Some of them are wrong because the technology is meant to foster a wrong belief, make you think it's your relatives or your parents or your work, when in reality, at least from what we found with counter surveillance in San Antonio, it's usually a private investigative group made up of former federal employees.
Yeah, that's why you've been on the news. You guys have actually caught people before in the act.
Exactly.
Wow. Oh, man, I tell you. And so you've got over 1 million private contractors operating domestically just in PSYOPs, they admit.
There's too many clearances out there. Too many clearances. And, looking at mind control technology, they've always contracted it out. It's never done directly by the CIA, not since the 60s.
Absolutely. Wow. We'll be right back with the doctor. This is powerful info. He'll have the floor.
The Alex Jones channel is the official page of the Info War. But don't miss what's happening on our other channels. The Info Warrior, with the week's best videos. Prison Planet Live, where Paul Joseph Watson gives his expert analysis. And keep up with the rest of the InfoWars crew on our other pages. All of our videos are available to repost for educational purposes. See the sidebar of the Alex Jones channel for the subscription links. And remember, you can always find our videos in the highest quality by becoming a member of PrisonPlanet.tv.
My friends, 15 years ago in Los Angeles and Tokyo, I know because we got the director of the company on, it was in the news, WashTech, they had Coke machines, soft drink machines that would beam audio to your middle ear that nobody else could hear. Now they have it, like out of Minority Report, where you walk by and because of Facebook, the billboard in Times Square, this has been out for 4 years, knows who you are, 3 years, face scans, and then makes announcements to your name what you're doing. Here's Wired Magazine today. Transfer a secret audio message by poking someone with your finger. Wired Magazine. And these are these systems that have been patented since the 50s. It's way more advanced. And they have digital data transfer over power lines now, where they admit all the new appliances are designed to spy on you, the CIA director said. So this is going on. The question is, how many people are schizophrenic that come to you? Well, get into what you discovered, the private investigators they're using, how it's subcontracted, and who they're targeting.
Well, the girl came to me complaining that she was hearing voices, that she was being followed, being targeted, knew her well, knew the family, knew there was no history of mental illness, knew there wasn't a drug problem or alcohol problem, had heard a little bit about this technology before. So gave her the benefit of the doubt and actually spent some money. We audio bugged her condominium, had people, following her to see if she was being followed. And indeed, the people following her, including myself, were followed to and from her condo and to my home. We got the plate numbers of the people doing the stalking. It all came back to a former FBI guy running a private investigative group. So seeing that we couldn't get anything done.
By the way, you're not just saying this. This is on the San Antonio TV. This has been national news.
Yeah, and the book's been out since 06. Most of this happened prior to 06.
That's right. I mean, and now you found the network nationwide, but go ahead.
But so we go to the police, and the police, at the time, Texas had different stalking laws. As you know, our stalking laws have changed. If you notice the same person following you now, you can actually get a restraining order against them. At that time, you had to show injury.
No, I know, because I went to court over it. The guy was threatening to even kill my sister, and they wouldn't do anything.
No,
I finally got him, though.
At that time, you had to show injury, and she had been injured because she had actually been drugged and sexually assaulted. But with Rohypnol, she didn't have any memory of the culprits. So we audio bugged her place, caught them breaking into her place, caught them putting Rohypnol in the water. Basically, the police said, this guy's former FBI, he stalks people for a living. She doesn't have any recall of the rape, and there's no way we're going to get a stalking charge. That was why I decided to write the book, to basically put it out there that this technology does exist.
But I mean, obviously they've got access to high-level government stuff. The question is, why are they doing it? Or is it, what's the point?
From after the book came out, and then now after talking to about 5,000 or 6,000 other victims, and globally and here, it appears to be experimental. We both live in Texas. As you know, guns and taxes won't control everybody, especially in Texas. You and I can, we can, skin a deer, we can run a trot line, we can get water out of a well. You can live off the land and not be controlled with taxes. electromagnetic weaponry, just as Persinger said 15 years ago, he could control every brain on the planet with microwave.
That's right. For those that don't know, tell people about the Pentagon. They're public about this.
Yeah, they're very public about it. That it's been found out that the brain is very susceptible to ELF waves, to microwave energy.
In fact, that's the Pentagon paper. The brain has no firewall.
The brain has no firewall. You can put voices in the head. For those of you listening that think that's an impossibility, go to audiospotlight.com. You can purchase a unit yourself to put voices in somebody's head.
Oh, no, Ventura didn't believe it till they got one and did it. He's like, what the? I mean...
there are several ways to do that. This guy, this new shooter, he worked in that field. The fact that he put that as NBC said, that cryptic message that they couldn't understand what he meant by my ELF weapon. Well, he understood it. That's why he went to where he perceived the voices as coming from, is why he went there. This wasn't voices telling him or subliminally controlling him to go amok, I don't believe, at least based on my...
Oh, listen, he could have been a schizophrenic, except they opened all the doors for him. I mean, you got a high security clearance and you're calling the cops 4 times and showing up saying the government's after me. You're going to the funny farm. Your clearance is yanked.
Well, and
they definitely...
And if you remember from the early MK-Ultra studies, the known mentally ill were experimented on more than the sane.
Well, and then they threw Army officers out of windows, Olson and others. I mean, yeah.
And I think this is basically a continuation of MK-Ultra, because, MK-Ultra ended with the Rockefeller Commission, supposedly, but all that ended was the freedom of information. All they did is make it all more black. And then as technology advanced, and they found out that, oh my gosh, the brain is very susceptible to, especially the temporal lobes, to microwave energy and various radio frequencies. All it did is take the lab out of the lab and into society. It can all be done remotely now, where we're all in the lab.
That's right. We're all in a giant electromagnetic prison, and they admit they're putting carrier waves over the cell phone, all of it. So there's one wave for your phone to work, but they're putting other information over that wave. It's incredible.
InfoWarsStore.com, a conscious and involved distributor of independently made products that support a healthy and aware community. Dive into cleaner waters with your own ProPure system and Pro 1D filter. Save 10% with the promo code WATER. We've handpicked a veritable treasure trove of the best non-GMO seed banks on the market. And our selection of films showcases a wealth of knowledge outdone only by our books. Check for combo packs to multiply your savings. Wear your colors proudly with one of these conversation starters. Now available in pink. Get prepared and fund the revolution at InfoWarsStore.com.
I am your host, Alex Jones, and we are joined by best-selling author Dr. John Hall. He's in studio. And what's freaking me out is reading his book and researching this technology. This stuff all exists. The question is, how advanced is it? How many people are just going crazy because of the electromagnetic pollution? A lot of big mainline studies showing that. We know mental illness is way up. A lot of that's chemicals. But there are definitely people that have been hit with microwave guns. A lot of famous people. In fact, it was an Iran-Contra whistleblower we've interviewed. We need to get him back on. His name's escaping me in a minute. He's the weather weapons expert, too. The first guy I ever talked about it. It'll pop in my head in a minute. The point is that they just drove by his house, shot him with a microwave gun, and literally his shoulder blew up. And this was in the 90s. Okay, so Bob Fletcher. I mean, there's a reason I know all these Army intelligence people. I know colonels, generals. They won't even go out of their house without disguises on, and they're not crazy. I mean, the people that have been around this real stuff and aren't evil, they are completely freaked out. And it's stuff like throwing little tablets of a radioactive isotope in your car. You die a year later, don't know why they remove them. I mean, all this has come out. They've got guns that shoot an ice dart into you, that's then got cyanide, that's designed to precipitate out so the coroner can't find it. You're a doctor, you know about that. This has been a congressional testimony. taking little foster kids in the 60s and 70s and programming them to be new people. That's History Channel. You know, so that's all the ancient stuff. But let's get into all the stuff you're telling me during the breaks, your sources, the info, how advanced it is. Dr. John Hall, the book, A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America. And, of course, the website is satweapons.com. Satweapons.com. We've got links to it up on Infowars.com and PrisonPlanet.com. Please break it down.
Well, and actually, I've got another website, too, that's www.newbreedmovie.com. Believe it or not, there's a screenplay written on that book now, which will hopefully do some good educating people about this. You know, for years, everyone has thought that the brain's too complex. There's no way you'll ever control people. You do mind control. The brain's too complex to be controlled. And the fact is that it's just simply not, especially when they started working with various frequencies, ELF waves and microwaves. It turns out that the brain is actually very easy to manipulate. And like you said, it goes back as far as the 60s and 70s. You see Malik's invention from 74 hit the brain with two dissimilar frequencies. It spits out an interference frequency. You can actually decode the EEG from that interference frequency. And it was initially invented as a way to watch pilots so you would know when they fall asleep or when they start.
They just announced Toyota, you're going to turn your car on with a brainwave. Exactly.
And we've even got toys out now. 2 years ago, Mattel came out with a toy where you control a little ball rolling around on a bed of fans with your mind. And that's an ELF wave-based toy. It's ELF waves generated from your mind that you're controlling a ball remotely with. So, I mean, the technology is really not that far-fetched, and especially now when with Snowden's release and you see the NSA, you know, what all of us already knew, especially you and I, that, yeah, our cell phones and our text messages and our emails are being watched.
And the IRS is targeting libertarians and conservatives and harassing them and arresting them. They are authoritarians.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you look at that, it's not too far of a stretch to go, well, if you're going to watch everybody, then you have to exert some form of control. And like I said, you know, guns and taxes don't control everybody. Electromagnetics do control everybody. No one's immune from that, and there's no escaping it. So, you know, when you see the things happening like happened with the shooter, you know, when it happened with the shooter up in Colorado at the movie theater, when it happened with the shooter at Sandy Hook, I mean, how long is the major media going to keep, you know, hearing?
And again, he had an Air Force colonel who'd been over a whole base in San Antonio, a psychiatrist assigned pretty much to him. And then they declared national security on his folders and stuff. And he said in the jail cell, I'm under mind control, help me. And then they said he was never in a cell with people, but it turns out he was. I mean, it's the same MO over and over again.
Yep, and, you know, if you look back at the research on it in the early studies, it started with MKUltra and targeting individuals. Then it seems like they went into group research type study. You see the People's Temple with Jim Jones. You see Heaven's Gate. A lot of people allege that...
Oh, Jim Jones was CIA. That came out.
Exactly. And that the CIA actually creates these cult groups so they have a captive population.
Well, that's their front.
Yeah, to test this kind of type of technology and mind control on a group. Well, now the group is society. They know they can work it in a small group. They know they can control an individual. Now they need to control society and the world at large. And for people who don't believe it, we've got early affidavits, 5 prisoners from the Utah State Prison who described accurately being put in cells, having electromagnetic energy placed in those cells that was so intense that they couldn't stand up. Several of them even said that they could tell that they were hearing voices in their heads of the perpetrators, of the people doing the research, and that they could tell that the voices were responding to their thoughts. You know, some of them thought it was sub-vocalization, that they were just responding.
But really, they've got a computer reading it out the other side. Keep going.
Well, exactly. And like I said, some of them thought it was sub-vocalization. You know, we have technology now where they can put a monitor on your throat, pick up the nerve transmissions from your auditory center of the brain to the larynx. And for people that you know, have had their arms blown off in war, can control a phone or can control a computer or control an apparatus by speech. Well, it's not really speech that they're picking up. It's the electric transmission coming from the auditory center or the auditory center to the larynx. This technology, at least based on some of the people I know, connections that I have that worked on it, is actually using, you know, the brain. All of this manipulation is being done at the brain level. And then you have this shooter who also was on trazodone, an SSRI, and that's been pretty well shown that the trazodone and the SSRIs, people are killing themselves at a record rate on those medications. So he may or may not have had a a schizophrenic issue, but I think he definitely had a targeting issue.
When you were saying that, I just remembered this from like 14 years ago. It's in some of my police state films. If you type in shomer-tech.com, and we have it on screen for TV viewers, radio listeners can go check it out. It's law enforcement and military supply. I was mailed by a jail guard, a federal prison guard, to my office, a big, thick Shomer Tech catalog at the time. And in it, they had the sonic nauseator and the supersonic nauseator. Guys, search that on the site for me. Sonic nauseator, supersonic nauseator. But I was pulling it up to go back to my memory. And the guy called in. He said, I'm going to mail this to you. You'll see. But we just do it for fun. We turn it on. It makes them all sick for hours. They vomit. And I got it open, and I called the company, and we even bought one and showed it on television. In fact, I've got it somewhere in the warehouse now that I just remembered. A little machine that if you turn it on, makes you start vomiting within about 10 minutes. And, yeah, there it is. There it is. And it said it's great to go to political rallies of people you don't like. You can make them sick and stop their First Amendment. That's what the catalog said. I haven't read the new one. And then it said, or want to make everybody sick on the cell block? Here's the big one. Yeah, there it is, the sonic nausea. And then they have the supersonic nauseator. See, there's mind control right there. So open, it's sold in a weapons catalog.
Well, in Los Angeles, in the prison system now, they're also using a millimeter wave weapon that they have mounted in the top of the break room. And it's a guard with a joystick in the control room that when a prisoner gets out of line, you can zap them with a millimeter wave and burn their skin to get them to back off or get them to do what you want.
Smaller unit than what they have on the backs of Humvees.
Exactly. A lot smaller. You know, the directed energy, as a matter of fact, El Spectador out of Colombia, which is a big news agency down there, came to me about a year ago now. Vladimir Putin came out in one of his comments and said that whichever country controls the best directed energy weapons will control the world without missiles or bullets. He went on to refer to a new wave weapon they have that they call a zombie gun that basically controls your mind.
I saw that, yeah.
None of our major media here.
By the way, I've talked to high-level military. They say those zombie guns are already deployed on Humvees in every major city.
Well, and if you look back at the first Desert Storm war, the
Iraqis were terrified. They just came out even when they hadn't been bombed. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and there was one scenario I talked to an Iraqi soldier that was there at that war. There was a Humvee that came out that witnesses said lightning bolts came out of the Humvee and struck a personnel carrier carrying insurgents. The personnel carrier was shrunk down to the size of a Volkswagen Bug, and the bodies of the insurgents were shrunk down to about 18 inches long. Were completely dehydrated.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I saw the photos of that. They look like little roasted dolls. Actually, they declassified that last year. Guys, type in Pentagon, comes out with a plasma beam, and it shows it blowing a car up. And that's reportedly it shrivels them. And it's not like a movie where it shrinks and it's okay. It's like, yeah, toasted.
Well, in the body's, you know, mostly water. So any type of weapon like that that's going to, you know, instantly dehydrate you is going to shrink you down.
You know what I hate about this interview? Everything you're talking about, I've separately is open source. So how bad is it? And so I guess it's government contracts to private agencies, private contractors to just go out, and now they're doing a mass test before the final rollout, I guess.
That's what it appears to be. And most of the cases I've talked to in victims, it is usually a private investigator who used to be a CIA agent or used to be a federal agent that's been allowed access to this technology. Now, I have had a number of whistleblowers come to me asking for advice that probably are being directly harassed by a government agency. That's the rarity. You know, most of the people I'm dealing with that are voicing these complaints are housewives. 70% of the victims are women.
Well, it's always like that in testing. They go after the weakest first as a beta before they hit real targets.
It appears that each one of these groups in every major city that's been given access to this technology can use it carte blanche however they want to use it. The group in San Antonio is mostly for sexual assault. As I told you on our break, there's a group of 60 gay men in Palm Springs. They're all hearing the same voice, the voice of a lady named Lisa. At the same time, they're being persecuted by her verbally. They're being attacked with directed energy weapons, burns on the skin, twitching, heart palpitations, headaches, you know, blurred vision. That's very noticeably coming from the outside. I mean, the chances of 60 people all hearing the same voice, that's not schizophrenia. That's that's experimentation until proven.
Well, they do it as groups to then test the interaction to see how, when they now want to target the targeted group later from the research, these are scientists, then the groups they're allowing to use this clearly are there just to get the raw data for the big scientific brains back at headquarters studying it.
Well, that's exactly right. When you have a different perpetrator group in every major city being allowed carte blanche to use it however they want to use it. Matter of fact, some of this is hired out. I know the former FBI guy in San Antonio, if you want to make your spouse look crazy during a divorce, to kind of point the proceedings down one direction, you can hire him to do that. If you want to hire him for corporate espionage, you can hire him.
Well, they say on these law enforcement things that that's what it's for. They say you want to mess up an event, you want to mess up a political speech, just take this.
And then, but when you, like you said, though, when you look at it at the very top level, and that's what I have a hard time getting through to the victims. They all think they're being victimized.
Look, it still says mess up speeches and demonstrations and crowd dynamics.
Yeah.
A major law enforcement site selling it.
Well, and these people, a lot of them all think that they're being directly harassed by a CIA agent. And that's not the case in most instances. I think it's usually a contract.
Here's an example. I live out in the country. I've got satellite internet. That's just a little dish. It's going to space. It's the same deal. But you told me you talked to people in San Antonio and the government, and it's the data over power line is what I've been told they can really use this stuff for.
Yeah, you can listen to the insides of a home with the power lines. I talked to connections that I have that are in our city public service, controls the electric power in San Antonio. They actually talk to each other via the power line. You can hook up to a power line, talk from one station to, and I'm not talking just data. I'm talking vocal.
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah.
They can communicate to each other over the power line.
It's electricity. It's basically fiber optic.
Exactly.
Electricity, speed of light.
And when I talked to him, I said, well, what about listening inside a home? He did say that the FBI occasionally does come to them with a warrant to be able to listen into a home through the power lines. Explained to me that the little circular hole in your power plug that we all refer to as a ground is not actually a ground, it's a return. And if you look at the power lines on the poles, you'll have two uppers and one lower. The one lower is the return. And it can be adjusted to where the grid in your home actually picks up your spoken word, and it returns through the return for anybody to listen to.
Well, by the way, they're now actually rolling out communications systems in, I think it's New York and Minnesota, a town. They've gotten a federal grant, I saw it like last year, to actually communicate over their power lines. So they're actually now rolling it out.
And for the people who think that satellite can't actually produce microwave energy down to the ground through the atmosphere, there's actually plans in order that I've seen where they talk about using satellite-based microwave weapons to warm neighborhoods or warm households to avoid the use of oil-based or carbon-based energy.
Yeah, Bill Gates is big in that. And satellites to help steer hurricanes away from people. And
or toward people.
Well, see, exactly. That's so expensive, though. It's the blimps. Alexander Haig, before he died, well, he died recently, but actually he had a TV show when I was in high school, my last year in high school, 1992, and I would watch Alexander Haig, because I like C-SPAN and stuff, but it was like on some other cable channel, and it was the Alexander Haig News Brief or something, folks. Go to his Wikipedia. I bet it's got Alexander Haig's TV shows. We ought to dig these up. He admitted everything would be blimps. He had the company. He said that there would be a national security force, and every town would have blimps, even small ones over it, that were solar-powered during the day, and that then you would have microwaves, to spy on people for their safety, of course, and all the rest of this, and how ground-penetrating radar to look through your walls, and now they're launching all this.
And it's all designed for control.
Well, I'm just saying they can put a lot more cheaply on these.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and, the satellite, we're launching reconnaissance satellites and surveillance satellites, every couple of weeks. There's a ton of them up there, and I know when I talk to the victims, they say, well, is it one or two or three? It's thousands of reconnaissance satellites that are up there. And the other question that a lot of victims will get is, well, how is somebody spending this kind of money to follow you, to watch you all the time? And actually, most investigators will tell you satellite surveillance is the cheapest way, to track somebody. The satellites are already up there. Our tax dollars launched them.
Sure. But I'm just saying launching more of them, they're going towards blimps.
Yeah.
You can put them at 100,000 feet. People hardly see them. Yeah. And they could just have huge arrays on the bottom.
Yeah, and like you said, they're solar powered. They're powered forever.
It's amazing.
There.
Wow. So where is it all going? We're coming back with the final segment. You're going to be on the Nightly News. We're going to tape it and air it next week, so we don't just waste it all here today. But what are we going to talk about when we come back in the final 6-minute segment?
Well, probably since we just had this development with this shooter, probably some reasons why maybe that's being done.
And again, people say, hey, he was just crazy is why he thought they were using ELF waves. He worked in secret weapon systems. He had a clearance. He clearly would have had it pulled. They ordered a stand down, folks. I mean, it just goes on, the timing, all of it. But I didn't think of what you said. That really makes sense that they were probably trying to program him to go do something else. And he said, no, I'll come back and go after you. In fact, that's basically what he was saying. I had tried everything. I'd cut back the amount of food I was eating. I was lifting weights and jogging, but nothing was working. My body was literally starving for minerals and trace elements as well as key vitamins. And as soon as I had that, I immediately could eat half of what I was eating previously and be satisfied. Now, there are hundreds of great products at InfoWarsTeam.com, but I want to point out the 3 that have helped me lose 37 pounds in just 2 months. Products like Beyond Tangy Tangerine, Pollen Burst, and Rebound. When I started taking the Tangy Tangerine and other products every day, I lost more than 37 pounds in just 2 months. Now that's results. I want to challenge my listeners to go to InfoWarsTeam.com and to order just 3 of their products, and you will see the changes in the way you look, feel, and in your appetite almost immediately. Start your journey to health and wellness today. InfoWarsTeam.com. There was another Navy veteran that I covered earlier in the show, Larry Ashbrook, who neighbors saw being drug away by Navy vans. And he said he was under mind control, begged police for help. Then he went into a Baptist church and shot a whole bunch of people, killing 8 of them. And then now we've got this gentleman hailing out of the DFW area. Again, if there are mind control programs, you have to look, it could be a mind control program. And then they let him in, they let him do this. What are your final points? You're making the Mars rover point to me. You were making the point about how it's satellite and other systems, but they'll be on the scene so they can triangulate with GPS.
Yeah, well, there's multiple systems that can do it. Gwen towers have been mentioned. Cell phone towers have been mentioned. The sources that I had within the government specifically talked about the capabilities of satellite, which is why the book's titled as it is. HARP is another one. It all seems to be geared at just multimodal ways to influence control over large populations. As far as both of these last shooters, they're both from Fort Worth. I know for a fact that the people we identified using this technology in San Antonio also have a branch of their private investigative group that works out of Fort Worth. And they use the technology that puts voices in the head, and there's multiple ways to do it, and it works fairly well. If I put a voice in your head that's me, that's harassment. And I think that's what this...
And by the way, it's come out on the news, who you're saying is doing this, this former FBI guy. Have they threatened you? Have they come after you? Have they said we're going to...
They did at first. When I first tried to get them in trouble with the police, they did. I had some break-ins. I had some gunshots fired through the house. Had the bolts taken out of the hood latch to my truck. Hood flew up on me going down the highway. So they did their best to try to get rid of me and it not look straight up like a murder. But like you said earlier in the show, when you're on the side of right, you have that grace of God, I guess, with you when you're doing the right thing. And the right thing's not always the easiest thing. Like I told you, I never in a million years planned on being the one of the spearheads.
Now, you were telling me that during the break. How did you just wow, it just got, and now you've learned more and more about it.
Well, after the book came out and I had, thousands of other victims come forward and say, thank you for putting a book out on it and using whatever, cred that I have with having a couple of initials behind my name. Not that that's any big thing, but the one thing that I was happy that the book did is I had a lot of families call me and say, we have a son that's been complaining about hearing voices and complaining of, government surveillance. We've had him to 5 different psychiatrists. They've shocked him. They've had him on meds. It never goes away. Now we have a little better understanding about maybe what he's dealing with. And if that had only happened once, it would have been worth having wrote the book. And it's happened hundreds of times where people have actually, let psychiatrists do electroconvulsive therapy on loved ones that were voicing these complaints. Now we're kind of going toward an educational campaign We need to educate at least local psychiatrists. Now, at the top of the psychiatric chain, Canadian Psychiatric Association, the American Psychiatric Association, they know very well what these weapons
Oh, they're the people running it.
Yeah, they're the ones who started a lot of the MK Ultra programs that have advanced to where we're at now. Now, at the local level, where you're being maybe mandated to see a psychiatrist, they probably are largely ignorant of the technology. But unfortunately, no matter how much proof these victims put in front of psychiatrists, they're not looking at anything.
Well, that's the question. How do you tell, because you've always been contacted by real schizophrenics then, how do you tell somebody who's crazy versus somebody who...
Well, the bottom line is schizophrenia usually starts at an early age. Most of the victims that I'm talking to can pinpoint the time their stalking started and their hearing voices started, and typically it's late 30s, early 40s. You just don't see that with schizophrenia. Schizophrenia is usually 18 to 28 in a male. It can be a little bit later in a female. So now what's happening is a lot of these victims are being diagnosed with delusional disorder or psychosis, otherwise specified, which means you've got something going on and we don't know what it is. On top of that, the medications won't treat this. And I've talked to several physicians that have been targeted with this type of technology.
Hello, this is Hank Hill, and I'm telling you what, you need to listen to Alex Jones.
Yeah. Infowars.com.
Judge, what is the secret of the universe?
Infowars.com.
All right, final segment with the author of A New Breed, Satellite Terrorism in America, Dr. John Hall. And what's frustrating is, you get death threats, stuff like that. They do psych warfare stuff like wait till something bad's happening in your life. Somebody's in the hospital, and then they call up, and right after you talk to somebody and say, oh, I hope your such and such dies. I've had that stuff. I know that they sell in law enforcement publications stuff to make everybody nauseated or disrupt people. That's an ultra-low frequency wave. And I just remembered that 15 years ago, searched it, and was still the same write-up. They're not even it's amazing that this is going on. And as you mentioned, I'd tell people 10 years ago they're going to roll out, or more than 10 years ago, Humvees with microwave guns. They'd say that's never going to happen. Here's the Department of Defense. Now it's just, all our towns have them. When the Tea Party comes out for a peaceful demonstration, the Marines are there and aim it at us if we cause a problem. They're just getting us used to all this, getting the military accustomed to it. Closing comments, Doctor.
Well, and in that same vein, you remember they did roll out the LRAD unit.
For the Tea Party.
And in L.A. and at, one of the G20s.
Yeah.
To use the LRAD, which is, by definition, a directed energy weapon. It's an acoustic weapon, but it's a directed energy weapon nonetheless.
But it's not just the sound one. They also have a microwave one.
Yeah, and that one burns you, and a millimeter wave weapon. All of this is just geared at being able to control us remotely. And that's one of the reasons that we're trying to educate psychiatrists at the ground floor level, that not everybody that comes in voicing complaints of being watched and hearing voices, you can't just give them a turnkey schizophrenia or delusional disorder diagnosis anymore. You have to really kind of listen to them and see what they have going on. And in the case I did with the girl that I wrote about in the book, gave her the benefit of the doubt and did some counter surveillance, and indeed she was being targeted, being stalked, being drugged, and being sexually assaulted. So that's one thing. Most psychologists and psychiatrists probably won't go that extra mile. That's also why we're doing a movie on the book, not a documentary, but an actual drama based on a true story, hoping that we'll expose a bunch of people that have never heard about this technology to it. As you know, you can make a documentary. You're only going to get a certain subset of the population to watch it, and it can be as scientifically packed as you can get it.
Yeah, no, people like to watch stuff, not read it. Yeah. And Dr. Nick Begich, as I'm sure you know, in the mid-'90s, he went to the EU and presented them documents, and they go, no, we know. And they actually outlawed all this. So this is outlawed in the EU, and we're signatories of treaties on all this. But we only hear about chemical weapons and biological weapons, radiological and conventional. What about the psi weapons? And we know the Russians, the Pentagon, they've been obsessed with it forever. And they make movies like, Men Who Stare at Ghosts to make a joke out of it. Colonel Alexander's actually, that character's in the movie. This is real. It's not a joke. We're not talking about, it's just so frustrating.
Yeah, Colonel Alexander and I actually have communicated via email early on in my fight against this. He told me that I should tell the victims, the alleged victims of this technology, to run, not walk, to the nearest mental facility. So, you know, that's pretty much a direct denial from at least Colonel John Alexander. And as far as the EU, yes, you know, he did manage to get some of that made illegal in the EU. It's still unfortunately going on right now through one of the organizations, and I'm with isaac.org. We are working in Belgium with victims there. We're allowed to go over there with victims and use a Faraday cage to do some scanning with some of the victims that appear to be chipped, and did some great studies in a Faraday cage where we put victims that are hearing voices and claiming to be chipped next to a control who's never complained of this. The victim was positive for transmissions. The control was not in a Faraday cage.
Interesting. What does that mean?
Faraday cage is a cage that...
No, I know what it is, but...
it means that these people are transmitting, and some of them are chipped. Some of the chips can be as simple as a Verichip.
Well, they have biochips that are actually liquid now, too. And they're coming out with all the pills that are going to have tracker chips in them. All right, amazing, Doctor. We're going to have you back on the news. Thank you, sir.
Now you can watch the InfoWars Nightly News streaming live as it happens for free.
Check it out at Infowars.com/show.
Ich mache hier nochmal ein Video und spiele hier auch Täteraufnahmen ab. Da werdet ihr jetzt die nächste Zeit noch mehr von mir hören. Ich bin dabei, diese Aufnahmen selber nochmal zu bearbeiten, so gut es geht. Ich hoffe, ihr könnt die Sache verstehen. Es geht hier um Folter seit 13.10.21 an meiner Person. Es geht um Abhören meiner Person jeden Tag. Es geht um Beobachtung meiner Person jeden Tag, von morgens bis abends. Was die Täter hier sagen, ja, ist klar. Beweis, dass ich, wie gesagt, abgehört werde und beobachtet werde. Wenn das die Polizei hier mal hören würde, was sie nicht tut, oder die Staatsanwaltschaft genauso, ja, dann wäre meine Folter bald zu Ende. Dann könnte man Ermittlungen einleiten und die Täter recht schnell kriegen. Denn ich habe ja nicht nur Audios von den Tätern, sondern auch Fotos, Klingelschilder, Videos, Arbeitsstelle und Teile auch Namen der Täter. Also hört da mal bitte rein und gebt mir mal ein Feedback. Dankeschön dafür. Ihr hört von mir. Schönen Tag. Ciao. mal wieder ein neues Video von mir. Auch eine sehr, sehr interessante Sache. Für mich auch sehr, sehr gut, weil, ja, ich habe einen weiteren Zeugen. Es geht hier um einen Patrick. Wir zeigen uns hier mal nicht die Gesichter. Wir sind, wie gesagt, hier anwesend. Ich bin jetzt gerade, es ist die Situation so, dass der Patrick ja, mich angeschrieben hat durch das erste Video oder durch die Videos bei YouTube. Ja, er möchte gerne wissen, was bei mir los ist und wollte sich das mal angucken. Er ist beruflich hier im Hotel, muss hier was regeln in der Nähe von mir, ist hier runtergereist und ja, es geht darum, ja, ich bin dann hierher gefahren und ins Hotel. Wir sind jetzt gerade hier und er hat sich Aufnahmen angehört von mir. Ja, mehrere Stunden haben wir das jetzt gemacht. Ich habe auch mein Richtmikrofon dabei gehabt, ja, und es geht ja darum bei mir, dass diese Aufnahmen von der Polizei und Staatsanwaltschaft ja nicht gehört werden. Es ist auf den Aufnahmen nichts drauf und ich ja mehr oder weniger für jeden Zeugen auch dankbar bin. Ja, also das ist jetzt hier alles real. Das ist jetzt hier nicht eine bezahlte Geschichte, sondern der Patrick ja hat sich diese ganzen Sachen angehört und er fand das sehr verblüffend. Aber sag du mal was dazu, Patrick. Also was hast du gehört in den Aufnahmen und ja, wie findest du das, was ich hier in Aufnahmen habe?
Ja, also ich habe die Aufnahmen gehört und von Kai, man muss sagen, ich bin beeindruckt, ja, weil wirklich Dinge zu hören sind, wie Kai macht Aufnahme, ja, bekommt Morddrohungen, ja, Kai wird umgebracht und das sind keine anderen Personen da zu sehen, ja, und das wird ihm per Schall eingespielt, definitiv, also das kann man ganz klar raushören und ich kann das wirklich bezeugen, ja. Da sind viele Aufnahmen dabei, wo ich ganz klar eine Stimme verstanden habe, ja, und auch die Sätze und Worte, die gesagt worden sind. Und man kann es quasi nicht leugnen, ja.
Okay, also dann, das ist da die Geschichte gewesen, das kann man nicht kurz erklären. Das sind Aufnahmen, ich habe ja 5000. Da haben wir rausgesucht, März, April 24. Das waren Monate, die sind sehr, sehr, ja, laut gewesen, der Täter, ja, die haben sich da nicht gescheut, mir das ins Ohr zu spielen. Und da haben wir in der Arbeit reingehört. Man hört auch, dass ich arbeite, dass ich in den Fahrstuhl gehe und dazu hast du ja auch Videos gesehen. Du hast ja original Videos von meiner Arbeit gesehen, wo auch Schallaufnahmen zu hören sind. Oder hast du das, was kannst du dazu sagen?
Ja, ich kann sagen, also ich habe gesehen im Video, dass Kai alleine war. Ja, da war niemand anderes da, im Aufzug zum Beispiel. Und da hat die Stimme gesagt, Kai macht wieder Aufnahme, Kai macht Videoaufnahme.
Ja, super. Also das ist das, liebe Leute, was ich hier sage. Ich will hier, wie gesagt, keinen Scherz machen. Das ist hier kein Spaß, was wir hier machen. Ja, ich will hier keinen auf den Arm nehmen. Dieser ganze Kanal bei YouTube ist mir sehr, sehr wichtig. Ich will hier aufklären, ja, ich will die Leute aufklären, was hier passiert, ja. Und ich habe ja da schon zugesagt, das sind weltweit mehrere Tausende, Zehntausende Opfer, denen das passiert, ja. Und das ist, wie gesagt, kein Fake, ja. Und diese Leute sind auch absolut nicht psychisch krank. Es ist halt nur schwer zu beweisen, was man nicht sieht, was man nicht hört. Naja, das ist natürlich für die Staatsanwaltschaft und Polizei generell immer ein rotes Tuch. Ja, da wird schnell gesagt, ihr seid krank und dann war's das. Also hiermit, wie gesagt, wieder ein neuer Zeuge. Ja, der auch, willst du bei der Polizei aussagen, Staatsanwaltschaft, wenn es soweit kommt, willst du das bezeugen?
Ja, ich würde es aussagen.
Ja. Super. Also er wird das auch bezeugen, der Patrick, und da bin ich ihm auch sehr dankbar für. Naja, und so hoffe ich, dass der nächste Zeuge und der nächste Zeuge kommt. Und wie gesagt, nochmal, ich bin ganz klar einer, der das hier alles klar beweisen kann durch diese ganzen Aufnahmen, weil die dürfen nicht passieren. Ja? Also, Patrick sagt ja gerade, er hat Videos gesehen im Fahrstuhl, wo gesagt wird, Kai macht ein Video, ja, oder Kai macht Aufnahme. Morddrohung, ja, die so nicht zustande kommen können. Das geht einfach nicht. Also, ich kriege per V2K, so nennt sich das, Voice to Skull, Stimme zum Schädel, über eine Technologie von den Tätern, das ins Ohr gespielt. Egal wo ich bin, ja, bei der Arbeit, im Autofahren, ob ich einkaufen gehe, ist es eigentlich egal, in welchem Ort ich bin, in welcher Stadt ich bin. Ja, die sind richtig mit mir verbunden. Und das möchte ich hier aufdecken. Und das kann ich natürlich am besten, wenn ich, wie gesagt, hier dazu Zeugen habe. Also, das Video beendet hier auch schon. Also, ihr werdet noch von mir hören. Das nächste Mal geht es darum, dass ich eine Audioforensikerin habe. Da könnt ihr den Bericht sehen. Ja, ich werde das Geld jetzt bezahlen. Und der Termin, der wird bald kommen. Und naja, dann lest euch das durch. Ist zwar auf Englisch, weil in Deutschland ist das so, dass die Audioforensiker, die ich alle angerufen habe, für die Staatsanwaltschaft und für die Polizei nur arbeiten. Das heißt, die machen gar nichts für Privatpersonen. Sehr, sehr schade. Aber auch das würde ich auch nicht bezahlen können. Ja, so ein Forensiker kostet 1800 €, da habe ich angerufen am Tag. Wäre natürlich nichts für mich, das ist massig viel Geld. Habe ich nicht. Von daher mache ich das in Amerika, aber sie ist ja trotzdem Forensikerin, ja, die das eben macht. Und da könnt ihr gespannt sein. Also, ich wünsche euch was und ja, ihr hört von mir.
die das US-Militär für 50 Millionen Dollar entwickelt hat. Das Active Denial System, kurz ADS. Eine Waffe, die dich mit Mikrowellen angreift. Die erreichen dich auch noch in über 500 Metern Entfernung. Von außen kann man rein gar nicht erkennen, was hier passiert. Aber gerade trifft elektromagnetische Strahlung in Form von Mikrowellen mit einer Frequenz von 95 GHz auf die Haut dieser Versuchsperson. Dort dringt sie durch die obersten 0,4 mm ein und heizt die Wassermoleküle innerhalb von Sekunden auf 55 Grad. Schmerzhaft, aber nicht tödlich. Es sollen keinerlei bleibende Schäden verursacht werden. Ziel ist, dass die Leute, die vom Strahl getroffen werden, die Flucht ergreifen. Deshalb wird diese Waffe zum Beispiel auch von Frachtschiffen eingesetzt, um sich gegen Piraten zu wehren. Und es ist auch der Einsatz für die Aufstandskontrolle geplant. Bisher wurde es dafür aber, soweit ich weiß, noch nicht eingesetzt. Obwohl zum Beispiel das Los Angeles Sheriff's Department um Erlaubnis dafür gefragt hat. Eine Strahlenwaffe gegen die eigene Bevölkerung einzusetzen, kommt aber sicher gar nicht gut an. Der Typ ist ziemlich heiß, genauso wie die ganzen Leute hier, und das liegt an der